Jimmy Hoffa, a name more famous for what might have happened to him than his accomplishments, which are very amazing in itself. He started off with a labor strike at the age of 20 in Detroit, and from there on he began a career of extraordinary value. He was part of the union and joined the Teamsters. Teamsters were organized truckers across the country. They pretty much ran like 90% of the transportation in America. They used things like strikes, boycotts, and less legal methods to get benefits and the demands of workers. Hoffa rose to be the Teamsters president, but before that, he had help from the mob. In 1941, he and the Teamsters hired the mob to eliminate his competition so he can secure his victory, which he did. In 1957, he became the president. Manch's Red Fox, a restaurant, and he went there, but no one showed up. So he called his wife to let her know that no one had shown up and he was still waiting there. The two men in question were Anthony Tony Jack Gasoloni and Anthony Tony Provenzano, both members of the mafia. Now, they both said they were never set to meet, and they were in different scenarios. They both had alibis. Tony Jack was at the Southfield Athletic Club talking to people he knew and he didn't know. Keep that in the back of your mind. He was explicitly talking to people. And Tony Pro was in New Jersey with his brother Salvatore Sammy Pro, playing cards in a union hall. Now, that's obviously a good thing, because they both seem to have not been there. They just, quote unquote, were not involved. However, you have to remember they're both part of the mafia, and it seems so perfect for them to both just randomly have no idea about the meeting. They're both having very solid excuses. Maybe too perfect. Maybe it was planned. Now, after this is when he disappeared. Witnesses claim that 3 men in a burgundy Mercury Marquise picked up Hoffa, and that was the last time he was seen. DNA sample from Hoffa's hair was found in the car, crediting the witnesses. The driver was said to be Charles Chucky O'Brien, according to witness. The interesting thing there is that O'Brien was actually a sort of the protege or successor of Hoffa. Now, Charles denied having anything to do with the situation, but Barbara, Hoffa's daughter, completely contradicts this stance, because she swore that Charles was in the the driving seat the day her dad disappeared. Police dogs detected Hoffa's scent in the car. What happened to him? Even to this day, federal investigators are still trying to find his remains and what could have happened to him. With the help of Ralph Picardo, an inmate in New Jersey, investigators found that one of Hoffa's killers actually gave him information, and this allowed them to form a suspect list. These suspects all go back to Tony Pro, one of the men he was supposed to meet. Now, this is where I'm going to be talking about what happened to him, and I'm only going to be discussing one theory, the Irishman's theory, or which is him being Frank Sheeran. I think that is the most likely scenario. Probably is true, but that's why I'm only going to be talking about it. Now, the theory goes is that the Irishman, Frank Sheeran, killed Hoffa on orders of Russell Bufalini. The author Charles Bandit spoke with Frank in his last weeks, bringing forth a possible conclusion. Hoffa was actually the first to get Frank to kill Hoffa's rivals, so Frank had a connection to Hoffa. The story goes is that they took Hoffa to an empty home, and Frank shot him in the back of the head, and they took him to a funeral home and cremated him, which was actually controlled by the mob. Now, the sad thing about that is that Frank actually didn't want to do this, if he did it, that is, because he was so close to Hoffa, but his life was threatened and he really couldn't do anything about it. Hoffa's son statement backs this, because he believes Hoffa would have only gotten into the car if he saw Frank in it. The other suspects were not suitable. The only issue is that there is no evidence except his words that would make this theory legitimate. Frank Fitzsimmons, who became the Teamsters president after his death or disappearance, who was a mafia member, actually worked with President Nixon to get Hoffa out, which is pretty good for him, but why does he do this is where it starts getting pretty suspicious. His plan was to boost the morale of the Teamsters by getting Hoffa out, but didn't want Hoffa to regain power or authority, hence he got the restriction on him with the help of Nixon. Nixon gained the popularity of the workers with this deed. Now, sort of a symbiotic relationship. Records show that the special counsel to Nixon, Charles Colson, received $500,000 from a member of the Provenzano mob, connecting him to Frank Fitzsimmons. At a time of the Watergate scandal, the mob sent totaling around $1 million to Nixon for his involvement in the Hoffa situation. Hoffa may have known about this. Now, I know this seems insane. Essentially, the mob has the president in their pocket. But you have to keep in mind, this is Nixon you're talking about. And this is during the Watergate scandal. You know, everybody knows how bad that was. So it wouldn't be that shocking. But it is pretty terrifying just how powerful the mob is. Now, Hoffa may have known about this undergoings, and he could have tried to eliminate the public on this exploitative situation, adding on to the growing list of Hoffa's demise. One of the top mobsters, Russell Buffalini, was terrified of this action. In fact, Hoffa was not only one silenced for planning to shed light onto the business of the mob. John Rossley and Sam Momo Gayakana were also taken out for trying to uncover the mob's business. Now, of course, this is just a theory, and I totally think the mob is definitely respectable. Please don't kill me, please. I have, this. I don't believe this at all. I think the mob is great. Ah, shit. Now the FBI are gonna kill me. Sub to Joe Scott.